In this video, I'm going to talk about the Shimbol M5 on-camera monitor and give a tiny review of the new TP Mini wireless video transmitters. Now, I've had a lot of on-camera monitors over the years, and so I definitely have a lot to say about the M5. I'm going to break this review down by features and specs, pros, cons, who is it for, price, and would I recommend it? And then at the end, I'm going to give you my 2 cents about the TP Mini video transmitters. So with that being said, let's jump right in.
This intro intentionally left blank.
Okay, so first, I'm just gonna show you kind of the packaging. You can see here, it comes in this nice little box, and I'll take it out here. So right off the bat, one thing that I loved is the presentation. They send you this nice sturdy case. It feels good, high quality, and something that I think will definitely protect it. And then if I open it up, here we go. You can see it's got a nice build quality right away. And it comes with this nice adapter here, also aluminum, good quality. And then as far as some of the accessories that it comes in, both the full-size HDMI cable and then a mini HDMI cable to full-size HDMI cable, so that's great. Polishing cloth, a screen protector here, which I have not put on it yet. If you're interested, the usual paperwork, of course. Oh, and before I forget, just a little Allen wrench here, which is cool. And yeah, it's just overall a nice case. It's always great when they give you something like this. It's good quality, nice foam insert, or you could always use this for something else if you'd like. I'll use mine for my monitor. Yeah, so that's a plus. Okay, and so here is the monitor. This is a 5.5 inch 1920 by 1080 screen. It's 1200 nits. Brightness, 1000:1 contrast ratio, 160-degree viewing angle, and it weighs 278 grams. As I mentioned before, it is aviation grade aluminum build. It feels definitely very sturdy, very high quality. Another great thing about it is that it has 8 built-in LUTs, and it can hold up to 99 LUTs of your own. It is also a touchscreen monitor that covers 100% of the Rec. 709 color space. And then let's go over some of the features on the outside. So power button, you get 3 function keys, 1/4 inch 20 here, headphone jack, SD card slot for your LUTs, another 1/4 inch 20 here, a USB-C cable for firmware and software updates, and then we have a full-size quality HDMI out, HDMI in, and a DC in. And then, of course, it takes NPF batteries. And yeah, just overall, it's a very nice, good-looking, sturdy monitor that has great build quality. Okay, and so that's that. Okay, so this is gonna be a quick review, and now I'm gonna give you some of the pros. I've been using this for a while, and here's some of the things that I liked in no particular order. So number 1 is the build quality, as I just mentioned. This monitor feels good, it feels sturdy. I think, it definitely, for the price point especially, which I'll go over later, it's definitely a level above your typical cheaper plastic on-camera monitors. It's aluminum, the buttons feel great, it doesn't feel cheap, it comes in a nice case. The overall presentation is definitely one of the pros. And number 2, probably one of the most important things about it is that it's a very crisp, clear, bright monitor. One of the things that impressed me right away compared to the other monitors that I have is that it looks very crisp, very sharp, even if it is an HD 1920 by 1080 monitor. Also, with it going up to 1200 nits, I think, even when I was shooting outside, it was very bright, it looked great. And again, that brightness level of 1200 nits is something that you typically don't find in these sort of intro beginner on-camera monitors. And then pro number 3 was really just the user interface. This monitor has one of the best menu systems of any monitor I've ever worked with. It's all right there in front of you. You simply tap very easily to turn on all your different scopes, your waveform, your histograms, your false color, things like that. To adjust the brightness, it's very easy. And one thing that's great about it is that you can very quickly make changes We all hate menu systems where you have to search for the buttons and then you hit the menu button and then you have to go down and you have to go to a menu and then you have to go through different layers of menus. On this display, I did not find that at all. I would say for most things, it's as simple as 2 touches, maybe 3 to do what you want to do. Okay, and pro number 4 is really the battery life. I've used this for an entire day on an NPF 970 battery with no issues. Some other monitors I've had just burn through batteries. This one, you know, one of the specs is it does have low power usage, and I could see that. You know, I used it an entire day and the battery, you know, there was still plenty of battery left. And then the last pro that I liked was really just, you know, the overall presentation, and it really seems like Shimbol is trying to give you a monitor that's in the $300 to $400 range for a lot less. So when you combine all of those things, the great build quality, the really great display that's crisp and sharp with the 1200 nit brightness, the case and accessories that it comes with, battery life, and just the way it looks, I mean, those are all some great pros that you typically do not get at this price point. Okay, so now I've said enough nice things about it. Like everything, there are some cons. So here's some cons, again, in no particular order. So con number 1 is that I found that this monitor had kind of a weird issue with outputting to the camera information. So for example, a lot of cameras have an option where you can either do a clean output of just what you're shooting, or I shoot on Fujifilm cameras, and on my camera it's called HDMI information output. So in other words, you know, you output all the information, the frame rate, how much battery you have left, how much is left on the memory card, you know, all that typical data that you only see on the back of your camera. One thing I found with this monitor is that when I turned that feature on, it went from being a crisp, sharp, pristine, clean monitor to suddenly the resolution dropping significantly. The text looked fuzzy, the on-camera text looked fuzzy, and it seemed almost like it went from being an HD image to like a 480 image, which was very bizarre to me, why it would do that. At first I thought, well, maybe it's, you know, my camera, some weird quirk with my camera, but I tried it on 2 of my video cameras that I have, and it did the exact same thing on both of those cameras. And I know that that will be an issue for some people who like seeing all of their camera information when they're outputting to their on-camera monitor. For me, it's not that big of a deal, but I know that for you, it just might be. But the good thing about that is that it looks like something that may be easily fixed with a firmware update in the future, or I don't know, for all I know, maybe it was just something strictly for the Fuji cameras. But that was a weird little con that kind of limits me outputting all of the information from my camera to the M5. Okay, and so now con number 2 is kind of an annoying, weird touchscreen quirk. It's a little bit complicated, so I'll try to be clear on this. And if I could say it as simple as possible, this is a touchscreen, which means it has like an iPhone pinch to zoom feature where you can just pinch and you zoom into something, which is actually really cool if you want to like zoom in to check focus and things like that. However, for a while I was using this, I thought that it was not remembering my settings. So if I had the histogram on, the waveform on, focus peaking on, I thought that the monitor was forgetting them, that I would turn off the monitor and then I would turn it back on and they were gone. And what I realized is that if you turn on the pinch to zoom function, it will turn off whatever you have on. It'll turn off your histogram, your scopes, it'll turn off your guides, any of that stuff that you have on, it'll turn it off. And so I liked that feature to zoom in and check focus and things like that. And I found that I kept losing information. I kept losing my scopes. I kept losing things like that. And then at some point, I just, you know, almost out of luck, I realized that if I want this to function like your typical on-camera monitor, where it, you know, you set your scopes, you set your guides, you set whatever, and then you turn it off, you turn it on, and it just remembers what you did last and how you had it set up last, I have to turn off the pinch to zoom function. So that is something for you to remember. Hopefully, again, that'll be some kind of software update where they can make it so that you can pinch to zoom, it'll remember your settings, and you don't have to leave it off completely for it to function like a normal monitor, because it's definitely very annoying that every time you would go in, you'd have to turn on your guides, turn on whatever. So for me, I just defaulted to just keeping that zoom function off, and I was fine, but still just a weird quirk and a weird con. And so now as I'm reviewing this, I'm realizing that really a lot of the cons this has are kind of just bizarre, weird little quirks that will hopefully be fixed via software. And so with that, con number 3 is that with the aspect ratio lines, they weren't the standard stuff you're used to seeing in a monitor. Typically you will see, 235, 239, 185, stuff that we all know. But for some reason on this monitor, if you want to turn on guides to matte out part of the image, they just chose some kind of strange, uncommon guides. And I actually had to look up what some of these guides were. So it does have 16:9, it does have 4:3, but then it had a few other ones where I was kind of like, who knows these odd numbers? So for a future update, it would be great if they just stuck to the typical 16:9, 185, 235, 239, 4:3, and maybe a vertical, aspect ratio guides in there, because trying to turn on guides on this was a little bit confusing. And so then con number 4, I'm getting a little bit nitpicky here, but it is something that, again, kind of wears on you a little bit, and that is that it turns on very slowly. I actually timed it, and it takes about 20 seconds for this thing to turn on, which is way too long. All my other monitors, I'd say it's not even an issue how quickly they turn on, but on this one, it took so long every time I tried to turn it on that I actually timed it, and it was about 20 seconds, which to me is way too long. Again, hopefully that's solved in a firmware update in the future, but that is something that did get a little bit annoying. Okay, so there you are, some pros, some cons, mostly pros over cons. So how much is this monitor? Right now, as of this review, it is $169. So that price point is typically for beginners, for people getting started, people who have simple shoots, maybe like content creators, things like that. However, I think that, this could even work for more advanced shooters, more advanced DPs that have, bigger shoots, more complicated situations. But overall, I'd say if you are a beginner, a content creator, someone like that, this monitor will be great. It'll be more than you ever will need. And so lastly, would I recommend this? I think by now you know that yes, I would 100% recommend it. I think for the price, this thing is a steal. I'd say the closest competitors that I've looked up are more in the $300 range or so, $400 range. So to get this monitor for $169, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. And so I would definitely say, if you go out and you buy this, you'll be very happy that you purchased it. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on to a super fast review because Shimbol, they also sent me this very cool device here, pardon the looks. This is a wireless video transmitter, which I actually used for the overhead shot that I used previously that you saw at the beginning of this video. So what does this little guy do? It basically transfers wirelessly what you're shooting on your camera up to 600 feet to your monitor. Great for things like a director's monitor, great for things like the overhead shots where you can't really reach your camera. So there you go, there it is. You can see it takes the Sony NPF batteries. Obviously you get two, you get a receiver and you get a transmitter, which you can see in the bottom corner there, TX, RX for transmitter and receiver. So on the transmitter, you have an HDMI in and HDMI out, and it also works off of USB-C if you want to run this off a battery bank. On the receiver, you simply have two HDMI outs and also a USB-C cable. And then you can see battery level here with this little button here that tells you how much is left. Power button, 1/4 inch 20 at the bottom here, and then just the battery slot in the back. So also made out of aluminum, good quality, simple device. I absolutely love these. I think they just work, they do their job. The most impressive thing about these wireless transmitters is the price. $89, which is crazy. Usually you have to spend, $300, $400, $500 well over 1,000 in a lot of cases, and this works great. So what I'm going to do very quickly is, again, this is a super fast review of these. Maybe later I'll review them fully. If you want to see that, comment below. But pros, obviously number one is the price. Pro number two, very easy to use. You turn them on, they link up, you plug them into your camera and your monitor, and you can see what you're doing. That simple, they work great. Cons, two cons that I'll give you today. Number one, maybe you've already thought this before. Come on, focus. Con number one, I'm not a fan of that dragon design. Very flashy, very bright. I don't think very many people like this design. The few people that I've shown this to have actually thought it was not that good looking. However, I do have a friend who bought this and there was no dragon on it. The dragons were a sticker. So maybe in the US, they're hearing that people don't like dragons on their stuff, and it's just red and black minus the gold dragon. That's a sticker that you can throw away. You can stick it on there if you like it, up to you. But that's a con. I really wish they would have sent me one with no dragon. But what I'm probably gonna do is just put black gaff tape on there and figure that out. And so con number two, they claim that it's a 600-foot range for the wireless transmission. 600 feet is a very, very, very long distance, okay? So they didn't have to say that. That's even, you know, some of the transmitters that are like quadruple the price, they advertise 400, 450. This is not a deal breaker. It did not, when I tested it, it did not hit 600 feet. I honestly stopped at about 200 feet because I didn't want to walk any further. And 200 feet was already, I think, further than most people would ever use a video transmitter in most cases, or at least people who are willing to spend 89 bucks on it, okay? It does not reach 600 feet. Maybe it'll reach 600 feet in a clear line of sight with no people around, in the middle of nowhere, in the desert, with no interference, you know. But in a typical city like I live in, I did get interruptions. However, again, that's not really a huge deal, because if you're gonna buy these and you're gonna spend $89 on them, you're probably gonna be shooting in the same room, in a similar space, in the same house. Maybe you'll be outside and the camera will be inside. You're not gonna be that far. And in that situation, they actually work great. So that's a huge recommendation, primarily for the price. So again, that's my review of the TP Mini and the M5 Shimbol on-camera monitor. Hopefully you got something out of this. Like, subscribe, and I'll see y'all later.